All right, jurors. I appreciate your diligence. I know it's been a long morning. We're right on schedule. Remember, the state gets last words. They have 32 minutes left. Everybody have a seat. Mr. Fernandez, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed, sir.
Thank you. Counsel. Your Honor. I believe we left off with actually hearing that the defendant was assisting a motorist that night. There's a lot of words, a lot of terms that have been used to describe the events that have been presented to you. Horrible accident, turn of events. It's a taking of a person's life. There's no humor to it. There's no anecdote to it. It's somebody's life that was taken away. It's Corey Jones's life that was taken away. Unnecessarily, unwarranted, unlawfully. The killing of a human being. That's why we're all here. Because he did it. Corey Jones is a victim. That's the word to describe Corey Jones now. Not a living person, not a son, not a productive member of society, a victim. And that defendant right there is the one that made him a victim. He did it through his reckless disregard for a human, for a person, for life. That was his course of conduct that night. It wasn't as if he just happened upon it and things just tumbled into a person dying. Corey Jones is the one that should have been presumed innocent in October of 2015. Because that's what he was. He was in need of help. That's all it was. But that defendant, through the bullets of his gun, he chose differently for Corey Jones. They want to say that this is a tragedy, that everything that happened here is tragic. Well, I'll tell you what's not tragic. Responsibility is not tragic. Accountability is not tragic. Justice, in this courtroom, justice is not tragic. Some people say that law enforcement should be held to a higher standard. Some people say that they should be given more of a break and allowed to do certain things and not held to a higher standard. Well, it does not matter if a person's a law enforcement officer or not. Justice is for everybody. Whether it's some billionaire across the water on the island or a black man on the side of the road, justice is for everybody. And there are brave men and women that put on that uniform that he should have been wearing that night to protect the community. There are brave women and men that put their lives on the line, who clearly identify themselves as a law enforcement officer, that go out and help the people that they're supposed to. He's a disgrace to those individuals because he did everything outside of what he was supposed to do as a law enforcement officer. He's a former officer. He chose that October 18, 2015 what to do. He chose to violate the most precious rights of a person. With great power comes great responsibility. He's responsible for his choices. He chose for Corey Jones. All because he chose to be reckless. He chose to be aggressive. We're not here to decide why he made those decisions. He did it. He started this whole course of conduct. So let's read some law. Self-defense. Stand your ground. Whether it's Corey Jones standing his ground or anybody standing their ground. However, The use or threatened use of deadly force is not justified if you find that Nouman Raja used force or the threat of force to initially provoke the use or threatened use of force against him. They actually did not write this law simply because of what he did on October 18th of 2015, but it sounds like they did. He's the textbook definition of an initial aggressor. He's the reason why we have laws like this. Look at this board right here. This is a transcript of that call that you heard. These are the words. You've heard them, but these are the actual words. I put them side by side, one under the defendant and one under Corey Jones, because it is clear that there is no identification whatsoever, but it's clear who is being aggressive here. Who's not only using profanity, but also speaking in a way that is purely aggressive. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not how you talk to a citizen when you're a law enforcement officer. But without any doubt, when it's 3 o'clock in the morning on the side of the road and you pull your white van on the wrong way on an I-95 exit ramp and park feet in front of a vehicle of a person that's only in need of assistance, and this is what you say? Really? That's what I say. Really? Really? That's what he says? That is the definition of aggressive. You don't get to hide behind self-defense when you do this to that person right there. You can't throw a gun at the feet of a person and when they pick that gun up, shoot them dead and then cry self-defense. Not in a court of law. Not in a civilized society. 125 feet. That's outrageous. 125 feet between where Mr. Jones's body ended up and where his firearm was. But that's not even the most important number of all the numbers that you heard. And I know you're writing them down. That's not the most important number that you heard during this entire trial. You know what the most important number is? 10. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Not just for him to consider what he had done, to reflect, to have that evolution of intent from being just a reckless, overly aggressive individual to now intentionally shooting to kill a human being. 10 seconds for Corey to do something too. Even their expert, even their witness said they agree. Corey Jones, without a doubt, prior to shot number 1, is at least 30 feet behind his own vehicle. How do you go up and treat a citizen at 3 o'clock in the morning with a broken down vehicle? How do you chase them behind their vehicle? That's what he did. He chased Corey Jones at minimum 30 feet behind his own vehicle before there's ever a shot fired. Before he ever saw what he says was a gun. Because as soon as he saw the gun, he's shooting. Corey Jones is out in the open, no cover whatsoever. 3 o'clock in the morning, 30 feet behind his own vehicle from an overly aggressive individual. And then the shots are fired. It's too late. We're done. Manslaughter's proven. He's already acted with such a reckless disregard. What could he expect the person to do? You cannot expect somebody to sit there and let you just treat them in that way at that time of night and not think that they're being carjacked, not think that they're going to be harmed, not think that they're going to be dead. There's only one expectation that he had in the way that he treated. But the problem is there's that 10 seconds. Corey Jones didn't just stop 30 feet behind his vehicle during that 10 seconds. He shot twice in the back. And I know it's not his actual back, but it's the back of his arms. Because he's running away. He even said he was running away. In his statement, he said, he's running away and I shot him. Corey Jones is 30 feet behind his vehicle and there's 10 seconds. And they expect you to believe, no, they expect you to ignore what the actual evidence is. Corey Jones's firearm is 70 feet behind his vehicle. If Corey Jones is already at a minimum of 30 feet behind his vehicle when the first shot is fired, 10 seconds, and they're saying he only covered 40 feet? They're saying he's not even running. 10 seconds was the difference of life and death for Corey Jones. You know what you call a person who's shot in the back multiple times and winds up dead 200 feet from their vehicle for doing nothing wrong? A victim. At the hands of him. The person who's supposed to be protected. This case is not about Dr. Juice. Dr. Juice has nothing to do with the manslaughter outside of saying that Corey Jones is dead from gunshot wounds. Because everything that happened prior to that defendant even saying anything, and the way that he treated Corey Jones during the first words that he said, that is where the manslaughter comes from. It has nothing to do with Dr. Juice. Believe Dr. Juice, don't believe Dr. Juice. She's a witness. She testifies that he is dead from the gunshot wounds inflicted by him. It has nothing to do other than being dead with manslaughter. You heard the way that he recounted taking somebody's life. You heard his statement from his own words. He said that the first 3 shots that he fired, Corey Jones was like this with his gun. Arm on the top door frame of that SUV. Shiny gun pointed directly at him. And that's how he saw that laser. Totally false. We know it's absolutely 100% false because he says that's when he fired those shots. He absolutely didn't fire the shots until Corey Jones is 30 feet plus behind his own vehicle.
20 minutes, counsel.
The light test that was performed means nothing other than he saw a reflection off of something potentially. It means he may have seen a reflection off of something that was shining. The light test doesn't say anything about seeing a gun pointed at him. And the whole reason why Corey even has a gun out is because of him. It's his course of conduct. He says the next 3 shots are while Corey is running away. But he told Sergeant Sprague he already saw Corey Jones throw the gun into the grass behind the SUV. And you can't get away from those 10 seconds. It's chilling listening to that 10-second prejudice and hearing the way those gunshots are fired after the 10 seconds. That second volley of shots is totally different. You hear it. He doesn't get a pass under the law for that. And the law says if you're trying to kill an individual, if you have that intent to take their life, that is what attempted first-degree murder is. And that's exactly what he was trying to do. He was trying to do one thing when he squeezed the trigger of that gun every single time after he had 10 seconds to consider where he was at and what he was doing. That's premeditated intent to kill. And what do we hear? Well, we hear that he didn't have time to do the things that are required of him in his detail. What about those 6.3 seconds? Their own sound person, I'll refrain from saying expert, their sound person says either 6.3 seconds from the time that there was a voice to when Corey Jones says, huh. How much time does it take to put on somebody's vest? How much time does it take to reach in and pull a badge out from the back pocket where you just did earlier that night? 6.3 seconds is the amount of time that he had. Their own witness said that he had 6.3 seconds from the time. This is after he exits his vehicle and is close enough to be picked up on a microphone of a phone. He's got 6.3 seconds before Corey says, home. They say there's no chance for the defendant to do the things that he is supposed to do as a law enforcement officer. Is that what we expect? Is that what the law says? Well, you know, just didn't have a chance to do it. How does that make up for the loss of him? He knew exactly how he was perceived that night because he had an incident. He knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing. And he knew that also when he called 911 and he said, I'm not covered in anything. Why did he say that? For his own protection. Because he's out there with a gun in his hand and he knows that when officers come to the scene, they don't know he's an officer. They might try to shoot him because he looks like an aggressive, armed individual at night. His own words from his statement went from a car broken down to about to die. Now we know exactly what Corey was thinking. Because that's what Corey was thinking. That's what Corey Jones thought. Fight or flight. Dr. Nelson got up there. Once again, believe Dr. Nelson. Don't believe him. It doesn't change what the law is. It doesn't change what the facts are. And it doesn't change the course of conduct that he chose. Fight or flight, though, is what he said. That's a fight or flight. Which one did Corey choose from the word go? Flight. He wasn't fighting. He was running. He was going to the back of his vehicle before there was even a second reeling. And Dr. Nelson also said some things about, somebody can run around like a chicken with their head cut off. Talking about a man who lost his life. The one choice that Corey did make was flight. He ran from the start. He ran from his vehicle. He ran for cover. He ran in the darkness. And you know how we know? Because that's where he was found. He ran for his life, but he didn't make it. There's a reason he didn't make it. With great power comes great responsibility. And that includes telling the truth. Yes, we do care when somebody doesn't tell the truth. Yes, it matters if you're not honest in your statement. Because what does somebody who doesn't tell the truth indicate? You don't need a degree from psychology in some fancy place over in California or whatever. You know exactly what it means when somebody's being dishonest. You can't perceptual distortion your way out of telling lies. You can't impaired memory your way out of telling lies. You can put whatever price tag you want on any kind of fancy word that you want to bring in here, but there is a word for it. And we all know it. It's a lie. And you know what? If we didn't have that AT&T recording, he might have gotten away with it. He had 33 seconds to think of exactly how he wanted to be perceived. 33 seconds to think of exactly how he was going to appear on that recorded call. And 33 seconds to know what he wanted to convey. It's not the truth. Truth isn't about being convenient. Even their doctor said, just because you can have impaired memory doesn't mean that you're not lying. Law enforcement officers are the same. You can't fight that evidence. You can't fight this AT&T call. You can't fight the statement made to Sergeant Sprague. You can't fight the 123 feet between Mr. Jones's gun and his body. in all of this, all of it started as a hint. And it ended because of it. We talk about the crime scene. You could pay $25,000 to have somebody put up a string and take a picture of it. It doesn't change what he did before all of this started. And it's great. You know what's great about the fact that when we bring witnesses in here, they're free of charge? Because they're not beholden to us for their salary. They're not dependent upon us for that paycheck. You see, during his walkthrough, he said, guys, get this off of me. Get all this blood off of me. The blood of Corey Jones is still on his hands. There's only one person to blame for that. He put it there. It's never getting off. He made the decision not to act like a law enforcement officer. That's why we're here. Had nothing to do with the situation that Corey Jones was thrust into and how he reacted. It's everything to do with what he did. He made the decision to shoot first and ask questions later. He made the decision to hunt, and I will say hunt down Corey Jones. Because when you take a firearm and you point it at somebody who is running away from you at night and you are controllably tracking them and firing that pistol at 1 second intervals until that person drops dead on the ground, that is called hunting. We will not refrain from using the appropriate words to describe the criminal conduct of that defendant.
10 minutes, counsel.
Sorry?
10 minutes.
He made that decision to kill without mercy. And when he fired those shots, it doesn't matter if one of them struck his heart or not. He still had the same intent. That's why when you look at the law, when you consider what was in his mind through his conduct, it's attempted first-degree murder. He doesn't get a free pass on his last 3 shots. It's not just because he started acting so reckless from the beginning and Corey Jones is dead. That's not the end of it. He doesn't get those last 3 shots for free. He doesn't get to act in that way. It doesn't matter if he's a cop or not. He doesn't get to act that way and treat somebody that way. Because he actually had that 10 seconds, that most important number. While Corey was running away for his life, he had the ability to act not just like a law enforcement officer, but act like a person, a law-abiding citizen. Instead, he decided not to follow the law. He decided to kill Corey Jones without mercy. There is a term that you read in those jury instructions. It's called an abiding conviction of guilt. It's that visceral feeling you have in your guts right now when you think about all the evidence that's been presented and you look over there at the defense table. That's an abiding conviction of guilt. For both manslaughter and attempted first-degree murder. Because it's time to hold him accountable. Because that's what the evidence supports. That's what the law supports. That's what justice supports. You see, at the end of all this, we still look up there and we see the man who unnecessarily lost his life. Unwarranted. unlawful. And it's because he chose to do the things that caused Corey Jones's death. He's guilty as charged of being a reckless killer and for trying to murder Corey Jones. And that's exactly what should be found here today.